Hi, welcome back to Biotech. Then we are going to see another important topic from the 8th class biology, female reproductive system. Okay, in the last class we studied about the male reproductive system and structure of the sperm. Then here we are going to see female reproductive system. The female reproductive system consists of different major parts. They are called, first one is pair of ovaries. Okay, then second one is fallopian tube, pair of fallopian tube. See, this is also pair. And third one is one uterus. So these are the important parts that we can observe in the female reproductive system. Here we can observe this is the pair of ovary, right? Here we can observe here is the ovary. Then here is also one ovary. Okay, this is pair of ovaries. And next one, this is fallopian tube, pair of fallopian tube. So this is one pair of fallopian tube, and next one is one uterus. Okay, these are the most important parts that we can observe in the female reproductive system. First one is ovary. Let us see the pair of ovaries. So where is the pair of ovaries? Generally ovaries are present in the abdomen. Pair of ovaries, they are present in the lower abdomen, in the pelvic region. Then these ovaries are called as female reproductive organs. The ovaries are also otherwise called as female reproductive organs. These are here pair of ovaries. So here is the one ovary, here is the one ovary, two ovaries are present. These are called female reproductive organ. They are present in the abdomen, in the pelvic region of abdomen. Next, okay, these ovaries can develop the ovums. Okay, these ovums are called female gametes. The ovums are also called as female gametes. Suppose example, if we can observe the TS of ovary, in the TS of ovary, here we can observe there are several sac-like structures. These several sac-like structures are called Graafian follicle. So this each and every Graafian follicle consists of centrally placed large cell. That centrally placed large cell will be developed as an ovum. Okay. Suppose example, if we can see TS of ovary, TS means transverse section of ovary. In the transverse section of ovary, here we can see there are several sac-like structures. In these several sac-like structures, centrally placed large cell is present. This centrally placed large cell is called one ovum. So whenever this Graafian follicle is completely developed, this Graafian follicle walls will be ruptured and ovum is released into the body cavity. This ovum is collected by the fallopian tube and storage in the fallopian tube. In this process, the ovary can develop the ovum. This process of development of ovum in the ovary and releasing of ovum from the ovary is called, we call it as ovulation. The process of releasing of ovum from the ovary is called ovulation. This is because of the two hormones released from the pituitary gland. One is FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and one more is luteinizing hormone. These two hormones are coming from the pituitary gland, which is present below the cerebrum. This follicle stimulating hormone can stimulate the development of the Graafian follicle and development of the ovum. At the same time, the luteinizing hormone can rupture the Graafian follicle. When the ovum is completely developed, luteinizing hormone can rupture the Graafian follicle and causes to release the ovum from the ovary. That process is called ovulation. So like this, there is pair of ovaries present in the female reproductive system. These ovaries are present in the below abdomen, in the pelvic region. The ovaries can produce the ovum, right? So though there is a pair of ovaries, but in every 28 to 30 days only one ovum is released. How it is possible? In the female reproductive system, here we can observe there is a pair of ovary, but in the every 28 to 30 days only one ovum is released. How it is possible? Because of in alternative process, this ovum is released from the ovaries. Suppose in the 1 month, suppose in this ovary can release the ovum, then next month it will take the rest, then another ovary can release the ovum. So like this, in alternative process of releasing of ovum takes place from the ovaries. This is the reason in every time, though there is a pair of ovaries in the female reproductive system, but only one ovum is released. That is the major reason behind of this. Okay, that is the most important thing. One more time, though there is a pair of ovaries in the female reproductive system, but one ovum is released, it is because of in each and every time, okay, in alternative process the ovary can releasing the ovum. That's why, so if 1 month if this ovary releases the ovum, but next month it cannot, then next it will release the ovum. So like this, in alternative process the ovum can be released from the ovaries. This is about ovaries. The pair of ovaries are present in the female reproductive system. Then second one is fallopian tube. See, this is the fallopian tube. This fallopian tube is also called oviduct. Second one is fallopian tube. See here, the fallopian tube is also otherwise called as oviduct. Okay, this fallopian tube, it has a finger-like projections in the anterior part. See these finger-like projections, it is useful for the collection of ovum when the ovum release from the ovary. Suppose see here, this is the ovary. When the ovum releases from the ovary, this ovum is directly released into the body cavity. When the ovum is released into the body cavity, these finger-like projections can move and collect the ovum, and it can be stored in the fallopian tube. Okay, when the ovum is stored in the fallopian tube, when the male gamete and female gamete, that means when the sperm and ovum both are fused together, that leads to the fertilization. When the fertilization takes place, this ovum will be converted into zygote, and zygote will be converted into embryo. Embryo will transfer from the fallopian tube to uterus, and it is attached to the walls of the uterus. This is called implantation of embryo. This is called implantation of embryo or pregnancy. We can also call it as pregnancy. So this implantation of embryo, it takes place with the help of a hormone is called progesterone. Progesterone hormone. One hormone is useful for the implantation of embryo, that is called progesterone. Suppose if it does not fused with the ovum with sperm, or if there is no fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube, what happens? This ovum, it will remain in the fallopian tube for 24 hours. Then after 24 hours it will come into the uterus, and it is disinfected and degrade, and it is converted into wastage, and it releases out as a waste material from the uterus. So when the fertilization do not takes place, the ovum will remain only in the the ovum will remain in the fallopian tube for only 24 hours. Then after 24 hours it comes into the uterus and disintegrate and disinfect and degrade, and it comes out as wastage. So like that we can understand the ovum life period is only 24 hours, but the sperm's lifetime is 3 to 4 days, but ovum lifetime is only 24 hours. That means it is only 1 day. So like that, within 1 day, if the ovum is not fused with the sperm, it comes from the fallopian tube to uterus, and it is degraded and comes out as wastage. Then again one more ovum will be released from the ovary from the next 28 to 30 days. So like that this takes place, the cycle. Such cycle is called as a menstrual cycle. This is about the fallopian tube. So ovary, fallopian tube. Next one, uterus. See here we can also see the uterus. This is the uterus part. This uterus part, it is used for the development of the embryo. When the fertilization takes place, that ovum will be converted into zygote. Zygote will be converted into embryo. So that embryo size increases. As the embryo size increases, here the fallopian tube size, it cannot be increased. That's why here what happens, the embryo will be slowly moved from the fallopian tube to uterus, and it is attached to the walls of the uterus. So that embryo is fixed to the walls of the uterus, and such process is called implantation of embryo. In this process, here the embryo will be converted into fetus will be converted into child. In this process, what happens, the embryo will be converted into child within 272 to 280 days. This period is called as a gestation period. We call it as gestation period. So the gestation period means the period which is required for the growth of the embryo to child is called gestation period. This gestation period takes place 272 to 80 days, okay, or 9 months. It is equal to the 9 months. So in this period, this gestation period, the embryo will be transformed into the fetus. The fetus will be transformed into the child. Suppose when the cell division takes place in the embryo, first the cells, tissues, organs are developed. In this process, when the cells are converted into tissues, tissues are converted into organs. So like that, when the development is taking place, that such type of thing is called embryo. But when the embryo is converted into, when the embryo has the head, legs, hands, eyes, okay, hair on the body, when these parts are developed in that part, in that condition we call it as fetus. So here embryo, fetus, both are different. Fully developed embryo is called fetus. That means in the fetus condition, the hands, legs, head, everything is developed in the fetus. But in the embryo condition, there is only tissues, cells, tissues and organ systems are going to be developed in the embryo. So this is the major difference between the embryo and fetus. So after 272 to 280 days, this embryo will be converted into child. Then child, it will be delivered through the delivery. So this is all about the female reproductory system. So in this female reproductive system, what happens? The ovary can release the ovum. The ovum is naturally stored in the fallopian tube. When the fallopian tube it gets the sperms, then ovum and sperms both are fused together, then fertilization takes place. When the fertilization occurs, the zygote forms. Zygote developed into the embryo transformed into, okay, embryo that travels from the fallopian tube to uterus, and it is attached to the walls of the uterus. Here the embryo will be grown into fetus into child. So like this, the embryo will be transformed into child. So in this process, the child development takes place. So this is all about what female reproductory system. And in this female reproductory system, so the most important things is, very most important things is pair of ovaries. Though pair of ovaries are present in the body, but only one ovum is released, because in the alternative process, the ovum can be released from the each ovary. And one more important thing, naturally fertilization takes place in the fallopian tube, so that fallopian tube is the place for the fertilization. And in the uterus, generally the embryo will be converted into child. That period is called gestation period. That gestation period is naturally 272 to 80 days. This is also called gestation period, or it is equal to the 9 months. So for the implantation of embryo, one hormone is useful, is called progesterone. When the implantation does not take place, or when the fertilization does not take place, the menstrual cycle continues. That is continued by the estrogen hormone. So this is all about the female reproductory system. Okay, in the coming class we shall study what is external fertilization. Generally this is the internal fertilization. One more important thing, this is internal fertilization. That means the fertilization occurs inside the body. Okay, here the fertilization occurs inside the body, so it is called internal type of fertilization. This internal type of fertilization also can be seen in the birds, okay, insects, okay, reptiles, next mammals. So these are the different types of animals. They may have the internal type of fertilization. Internal type of fertilization means the fertilization takes place inside the body. That means the fusing of male and female gametes occurs inside the body. It is called internal fertilization. So this is about the example of internal fertilization. So in the coming class we shall study about the external fertilization. That is about the frog, fishes, okay, how they fertilize, how they can increase their generation. So that external fertilization also we shall study. And one more is there, we shall study about here what is IVF. We shall see one more small topic is called IVF. What is IVF? IVF means here in vitro fertilization. In vitro fertilization. See, what is in vitro fertilization? In vitro means lab. See here, in vitro means lab. So the persons, those who have the natural implantation of embryo, or persons those who have the natural fertilization, those who do not have the natural fertilization. Suppose the couples, those who do not have the natural fertilization, for them they do not have any children. So in that condition, what will be done? Generally, the male and female gametes are taken out of the body. Suppose example, from the female, the ovums are taken out, from the male, sperms are taken out. These male gametes and female gametes are fusing in the controlled conditions in the lab. That means when there some controlled conditions are created in the lab, in this controlled condition, the male gamete and female gamete both are fused together in the test tube. See, this occurs in the laboratory. That means this occurs in the laboratory, so that we are calling it is a IVF. IVF means, the meaning of IVF, it is in vitro fertilization. In vitro means the process occurs in the lab. So that here we can see the person, those who do not have the children for more years or many years, they generally they will go for the IVF, in vitro fertilization, or test tube babies. We can also call them as test tube babies. Okay, what is test tube baby means? Test tube babies are generally produced in the process of IVF, that is called in vitro fertilization. In this process of in vitro fertilization, what happens? From the female, the ovum is taken out, that is female gamete. From the male, sperms are taken out, these are called the male gametes. These both the male gamete and female gametes are fused in the laboratory, or in the specific conditions, or in the control conditions in the test tube. So when the fertilization occurs, when the zygote is formed, this allowed to grow in the test tube for 1 week. ఒక 1 week వాళ్ళకి అలాగే దాన్ని ఒక జైగోట్ నుండి ఎంబ్రియోగా కన్వర్ట్ అయ్యేదాకా అలాగే ఉంచి, ఆఫ్టర్ 1 week this embryo is inserted into the female, that mother's uterus, so that the mother can have the implantation. So she naturally carries the child and she can give the birth. So in this process, if they have the children, that is called test tube babies. This process is known as called IVF. Generally, this is a one type of external fertilization. This is a one type of external fertilization. But natural fertilization is internal fertilization. In the human beings, natural fertilization is internal fertilization. But during the IVF process, or during the test tube babies, here instead of internal fertilization, there will be taking place external fertilization. In this external fertilization, the male and female gametes are fused together in the laboratory method, or in the test tube, so that the zygote will be formed. After the formation of zygote, that will be allowed to grow in the test tube for 1 week. When it is converted into embryo, it will be transferred to the mother's uterus. Then she can have the, or she can carry the pregnancy, and she can go on carrying the child. Then after 270 to 280 days, she could give the birth to the child. In this process, if they could get the children, that is called test tube babies. This process is known as IVF. So this is all about female reproductive system and IVF.